Imagine the suffocating silence of the Arabian desert, where the only sound is the wind carving ripples into endless dunes of golden sand. Now, visualize a flash of crimson red cutting through that beige monotony. It is not a mirage. It is a Ferrari Enzo, a masterpiece of Italian engineering valued at over $3 million, baking under the relentless 120-degree sun. But it is not alone. As your eyes adjust to the shimmering heat haze, the shapes begin to emerge like ghosts rising from a grave. A Lamborghini Aventador with its scissor doors unlocked, waiting for a driver who will never return. A Bentley Continental, its leather interior slowly cooking into a cracked, brittle ruin. A custom-made Rolls-Royce, its Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament covered in a thick layer of gritty dust, staring blindly into the horizon. This is not a scene from a post-apocalyptic movie, nor is it a surrealist painting brought to life. This is a very real, very tangible geographic coordinate on our planet, where the gross domestic product of a small nation sits rotting in the sun. Why would anyone abandon a machine that costs more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes? What kind of terror or indifference drives a human being to walk away from the pinnacle of automotive perfection, leaving the keys in the ignition? As the tires slowly deflate and the engine seize from years of inactivity, these cars tell a story much darker than simple negligence. They are the silent witnesses to financial empires crumbling overnight, to hasty escapes under the cover of darkness, and to the terrifying reality that in this specific part of the world, debt is not a civil matter. It is a criminal offense that leads straight to a prison cell. We are standing at the precipice of a modern mystery, gazing into a graveyard that shouldn't exist. To understand how a Bugatti Veyron becomes a nesting ground for desert scorpions, we must peel back the glossy, filtered layers of the luxury lifestyle we see on Instagram. We need to investigate the economic shockwaves that turned billionaires into fugitives and transformed dusty parking lots into museums of abandoned wealth. This journey will take us from the high-octane expressways of the Middle East to the shadowy impound lots where legal battles freeze these assets in time for decades. We will analyze the psychology of the super-rich, the chaotic legislation of the United Arab Emirates, and the opportunistic vultures waiting for the legal loopholes to close so they can claim these mechanical carcasses. These vehicles are not just metal and carbon fiber. They are cautionary tales of hubris, excess, and the fragile nature of fortune. They are time capsules, preserving the exact moment a life fell apart. A half-drunk bottle of water in the cup holder, a gym bag in the passenger seat, a maxed-out credit card in the glove box. Before we unlock the rusted doors of these forbidden machines and reveal the secrets hidden in their trunks, I need to know where our global community of explorers is tuning in from today. This story spans continents, from the buyers in London to the sellers in Tokyo, but it all centers here. Comment below which city you are watching this video from so I know how far our story has reached. The phenomenon began as a trickle before it became a flood, a direct consequence of the global financial crisis that brought the world to its knees in the late 2008. In the glittering metropolis of Dubai, the economy was overheating, fueled by real estate speculation and an influx of expatriate wealth that seemed to have no ceiling. Bankers, real estate moguls, and tech entrepreneurs flocked to the desert city, lured by tax-free salaries and a lifestyle of unparalleled opulence. They bought villas on artificial islands and, of course, they bought the ultimate status symbols, supercars. Financing a Porsche or a Ferrari was as easy as signing a dinner check. But the unique legal framework of the region contained a trapdoor that few foreigners fully understood until the ground gave way beneath them. Under Sharia law, which informs the penal code, defaulting on a loan repayment was considered a criminal act, not a civil one. A bounced check wasn't just an administrative error, it was a one-way ticket to a harsh prison sentence. When the bubble burst and credit lines froze, thousands of high-flying expats found themselves jobless and drowning in debt overnight. The panic was immediate and visceral. Facing the terrifying prospect of indefinite incarceration in a foreign jail, many chose the only option left: flight. This sparked one of the most bizarre exoduses in aviation history. The parking structures of Dubai International Airport became the dumping ground for the panic-stricken elite. Imagine the scene. A British investment banker, realizing his assets have been frozen, packs a single suitcase. He drives his blackened Ferrari 599 GTB to Terminal 3, parks it in a random spot, writes a quick apology note on the back of a receipt, leaves the keys on the dashboard, and sprints for the last flight to London. He never looks back. This happened not once, but thousands of times. The airport authorities were overwhelmed. Initially, they thought people were just on extended vacations. But as weeks turned into months, the thick layer of dust on the windshields told a different story. The tires went flat. The batteries died. Fingers traced insults and jokes into the grime on the hoods. These weren't just cars. They were evidence of a mass disappearance. Do you think you would have the nerve to leave a $250,000 asset behind to save your own skin? Or would you try to smuggle it out? The reality is, the borders were watched, but the airport parking lot was a blind spot. Yet, amidst the rows of Porsches and Mercedes, police began to notice something disturbing. Some of these cars weren't left by fleeing expats. In the trunk of a pristine BMW M6, they found something that shifted the narrative from financial desperation to organized crime. The deeper we dig into these impound lots, the more we realize that the debtor's panic is only one chapter of this saga. There is a specific subset of vehicles here that are entangled in stories far more complex than a bounce check. Take, for example, the legend of the abandoned Ferrari Enzo. This specific car became the poster child for the abandoned supercar phenomenon, its image circulating on every car forum and news site on the internet. Only 399 of these were ever produced, making it a holy grail for collectors. Why would such a rare artifact be left to rot in a police impound lot in Sharjah? The story involves a British citizen, a confusing web of ownership disputes, and an Interpol notice. The owner allegedly fled the country after a business deal went sour, but the car itself became a prisoner of bureaucracy. It has been sitting there for years, subjected to temperatures that can melt dashboard plastics and warp carbon fiber panels. The heat cycles alone are enough to destroy the delicate seals and gaskets of the engine. Yet, legally, it cannot be touched. It cannot be sold. It cannot be moved. It sits in a state of purgatory, a multi-million-dollar asset that is effectively worthless because of a piece of paper. This legal paralysis creates a strange ecosystem. The cars are seized by the police or airport security, but the process to auction them off is laborious and fraught with liability issues. If the owner returns and pays the debt, they are entitled to their vehicle. If the bank claims it, they must go through months of litigation. In the meantime, the car sits and waits and rots. We have seen limited edition Lamborghinis where the interior leather has grown mold due to the humidity trapped inside. We have seen engines that have become nests for rats and stray cats. The juxtaposition is jarring, the highest level of human craftsmanship being undone by the simplest forces of nature. Walking through these rows is like walking through a graveyard of ambition. You see custom license plates that once signaled power, number 1, king, boss, now coated in bird droppings. It forces us to ask a difficult question about value. Is a supercar still a supercar if it can't move? If a 12-cylinder engine screams in the desert and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? Or is it just a sculpture of vanity? But there is a secret within this secret. Beyond the public auctions and the police lots, there are rumors of private warehouses. Dark, climate-controlled bunkers where the cars aren't abandoned, but hidden. Hidden from ex-wives, hidden from tax collectors, and hidden from rival cartels. While the airport parking lots are the most visible graveyards, the true scale of the abandonment is found in the industrial impound yards located on the outskirts of cities like Sharjah and Abu Dhabi. These are vast, sprawling acres of sand surrounded by chain-link fences and razor wire housing tens of thousands of vehicles. From the sky, it looks like a mosaic of metal and glass. On the ground, it is a labyrinth of despair. Here, the supercars are mixed in with mundane family sedans and delivery trucks, a democratization of decay. A Rolls-Royce Phantom might be wedged between a Toyota Camry and a water tanker. The specialized mechanics of these high-end vehicles make them particularly vulnerable to this environment. The air suspension systems on Range Rovers and Mercedes collapse, leaving the cars sitting on their frames like crushed beetles. The complex electronics of a modern McLaren are no match for the fine desert sand that infiltrates every crevice, shorting out circuit boards and corroding sensors. It is a mechanic's nightmare and a scavenger's dream. However, scavenging is strictly illegal. You might think these yards would be picked clean by parts hunters, but the security is surprisingly tight. These are government-controlled zones. Yet, corruption finds a way. There are whispers in the underground car scene of midnight shoppers, mechanics who bribe guards to let them enter under the cover of darkness to strip valuable parts. A ceramic brake caliper from a Ferrari can cost $20,000. Stealing one takes 10 minutes. An engine control unit from a Lamborghini is worth more than gold by weight. As a result, many of the cars you see in these yards are slowly being cannibalized, looking like carcasses picked over by vultures. They are missing headlights, badges, steering wheels, and sometimes entire engine blocks. It creates a ghostly aesthetic, hollowed-out shells that used to tear up the asphalt at 200 miles per hour. But among the stripped chassis and the sun-bleached interiors, explorers have stumbled upon vehicles that defy explanation. Cars that were never sold in the region. Prototype vehicles that were supposed to be destroyed by the manufacturers. And in one corner of a particularly remote yard, covered by a tarp that had almost disintegrated, a team of urban explorers found a vehicle with bullet holes along the driver's side door, a silent testament to a violent end that wasn't caused by a car crash. The intrigue deepens when we consider that not all these cars belong to fleeing businessmen. Some belong to toppled regimes. When the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East shifts, it often shifts violently, and the luxury assets of the ruling class are the first things to be left behind or hidden. We have heard stories of the dictator's vaults, collections of supercars belonging to the families of deposed leaders like Saddam Hussein or Muammar Gaddafi. In the chaos of invasion or revolution, these cars were often hastily concealed to prevent them from being destroyed by looting mobs or seized by coalition forces. There are documented cases of Ferraris and Porsches being wrapped in plastic sheeting and buried in the desert sand, much like pirate treasure, with the owners hoping to retrieve them when the dust settled. But often, the owners never returned. They were captured, exiled, or killed, leaving their mechanical treasures buried in unmarked graves beneath the dunes. Imagine stumbling upon the roofline of a Ferrari F40 protruding from a sand dune. It sounds like fiction, but it has happened. These cars occupy a strange legal and historical gray area. They are spoils of war, evidence of corruption, and historical artifacts all at once. Recovering them is nearly impossible due to ownership titles that no longer exist or belong to dead man. They remain there, preserved by the dry sand, but crushed by the weight of the earth. In other cases, the cars were stolen from Europe or North America, shipped in containers to the Middle East, and then abandoned when the heat from Interpol got too intense. Organized crime rings use these free trade zones to wash assets, but sometimes a deal goes wrong, or a buyer gets arrested, and the car is left in a container at the port for years. When customs officials finally cut the lock, they find a dusty Aston Martin that was reported stolen in London 5 years prior. The sheer waste is nauseating. We are talking about automotive art, hand-built by artisans, discarded like trash. But for the opportunistic viewer watching this, the burning question is, can I buy one? Can I rescue one of these beasts? The answer is a tantalizing dangerous yes, but it comes with a catch that could bankrupt you faster than the original owner. Let's talk about the auctions. Several times a year, the police departments and banks hold public auctions to liquidate this inventory. On paper, it looks like the deal of the century. You browse a catalog and see a 2015 Ferrari 458 Italia with a starting bid of $30,000. The market value is easily 5 times that. Your heart starts racing, you imagine shipping it back home, detailing it, and driving a supercar for the price of a Honda Civic. But here is the reality check that the brochures don't mention. You are buying as is, where is. You are not allowed to start the engine. You are not allowed to put it on a lift to inspect the undercarriage. You can only look through the window. You are gambling on a machine that effectively has complex terminal cancer. A car that is sat in 120-degree heat for 3 years is a mechanical time bomb. All the rubber hoses have dried and cracked. The fuel in the tank has turned into a varnish that has ruined the fuel pump and injectors. The engine cylinders might be seized solid. Furthermore, there is the issue of black mold. The humidity in the Gulf is extreme in the summer. A sealed car acts like a greenhouse. The interior becomes a petri dish for mold spores that eat into the leather, the headliner, and deep into the ventilation system. You might buy that Ferrari for $30,000, but you will spend another $50,000 replacing the entire interior and the electrical harness. And then there are the hidden liens. Sometimes you win the auction only to find out there is a secondary claim on the title that prevents you from exporting the car. You become the new owner of a very expensive paperweight. Yet, the allure is too strong for many to resist. YouTube is full of channels dedicated to reviving these scrap cars. It's a lottery. For every success story of a guy who got a running G-Wagon for pennies, there are 10 stories of people who bought a lemon that will never run again. But the ultimate horror story isn't about a broken engine. It's about a car that was purchased at an auction, shipped to the United States, and during the restoration process, the mechanics found something under the spare tire that made them call the FBI immediately. What did they find? It wasn't drugs, and it wasn't gold. It was a diary. And this brings us to the most haunting aspect of the billionaire's graveyard, the human residue. When we look at these cars, we obsess over the horsepower and the depreciation, but we forget that these were personal sanctuaries. When people flee in a panic, they leave pieces of their soul behind. In the glove boxes, auction hunters have found ultrasound photos of unborn children, divorce papers, love letters, and suicide notes. The car becomes a mausoleum for a life that crashed and burned. That Bentley isn't just a car, it's the scene where a marriage ended. That Porsche is where a businessman realized he had lost everything. The diary found under the spare tire detailed the final weeks of a man who was being hunted by loan sharks, documenting his terror as the walls closed in. It transforms the object from a symbol of greed into a symbol of tragedy. As we stand back and look at the aerial footage of these thousands of abandoned supercars, the visual is striking. It is a modern Ozymandias. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. These cars were built to be the ultimate expression of speed, power, and status. They were designed to turn heads and incite envy. Now they are indistinguishable from the sand that surrounds them. They are a reminder that no amount of engineering, no amount of horsepower, and no amount of money can outrun the consequences of a fragile economy or a poor decision. Nature eventually reclaims everything. The leather cracks, the metal rusts, the paint fades. So the next time you see a shiny supercar revving its engine at a stoplight, remember the silent graveyard in the desert. Remember that for every one of those cars screaming down the highway, there is a ghost twin sitting in the silence of the dunes, waiting for a driver who will never come back. Would you take the risk? If I gave you the coordinates to a free Lamborghini buried in the sand, would you dig it out? Or are some things better left buried?